The chair would like to call to order tonight's regular meeting of CUSD 201 Board of Education, June 19th, 2018. And roll call, please.
Mr. Armstrong.
Here.
Mrs. Charlton.
Here.
Mrs. Coyle.
Here.
Mr. Price.
Here.
Mr. Rudy.
Here.
Mr. Strohmeyer.
Here.
Ms. Wilson.
Here.
Thank you.
If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is approval of minutes for May 15, 2018. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the May 15, 2018 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the May 15, 2018 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Are there any public comments?
Okay. Dear Community School Unit School District 201 board members, my name is Larissa Zalisco and I'm the Westmont High School Guidance Department Coordinator. Throughout the 2016-2017 school year, our guidance department began collecting data related to class rank. Discussions about this topic were initiated by the Westmont High School Guidance Advisory Council, which is a required committee by the American School Counseling Association for all counseling departments that have achieved recognized national status. It is comprised of staff members, students, parents, and community members. With the assistance and support of our advisory council and school administrators, our department drafted an initial presentation to the school board, which Jack Walderman and I shared on Tuesday, May 16th, 2017. This presentation focused on the history of class rank, the current national implications of class rank as they relate to the college application and admission process, as well as surveys that were collected from staff members and students. Reasons to keep class rank, as well as reasons to eliminate it, were discussed. Based on this initial information, a suggested proposal was made to eliminate class rank at Westmont High School, beginning with the class of 2020, which would have impacted the students who were completing their freshman year at the time. The reason for proposing that this change be made to the current freshman class was because students are not ranked until halfway through their sophomore year. Per standard Westmont High School policy, though, students would continue to receive Latin system recognitions, such as cum laude, GPAs of 3.5 to 3.99, and magna cum laude, GPAs of 4.0 and higher at graduation. Students in these high-achieving categories would then have the opportunity to be selected by a Westmont High School staff committee as one of the 2 class speakers at the graduation ceremony through an interview process. Many thanks again to everyone on the school board for listening to this presentation at that time, discussing the implications of class rank, and making requests for more information as well as recommendations moving forward. Following that board presentation, Westmont High School began to follow the recommendations of our school board and hosted a district-wide parent and community information input meeting. The majority of parents in attendance were junior high school parents, and they shared the school board sentiment to possibly implement this policy with an incoming class as compared to a current Westmont High School class of students. Through our continued Guidance Advisory Council discussions this 2017-18 school year, our team also now believes that starting a revised policy with a new incoming class would be the best option for our high school students. Furthermore, through the continued work of our Guidance Advisory Council during this 2017-2018 school year, our school has collected additional requested data specifically in regards to when and how the Chicagoland schools who have eliminated class rank did so. Of all DuPage County public high schools, approximately 60% have eliminated the use of class rank. Of the high-ranking Chicagoland schools to whom Westmont High School has recently been compared to based on advanced placement, inclusion, and test scores, many have eliminated class rank, and some did so almost 2 decades ago. As examples, New Trier High School eliminated class rank in the year 2000, and Lake Forest High School eliminated rank in 2002. More local examples can be found at Hinsdale Central and Hinsdale South High Schools. They eliminated the use of class rank beginning with the class of 2006. Most notably, perhaps, is the elimination of class rank in 2 local unit school districts, York High School and Lisle High School. When collecting anecdotal research from these two unit school districts, we learned that they were overwhelmingly impressed with the increased number of students who were able to be recognized for their academic achievements. Instead of limiting student recognition to the top 10, for example, all students with over a 3.5 and then with over a 4.0 GPA were celebrated unconditionally. From a college admission perspective, as District 86 stated in a letter to parents in 2004, when forced to evaluate our students from a holistic vantage point, rather than by simply using numbers, our students' admission rates improved. With this additional information, our Westmont High School staff and administrators would like our school board to continue discussing the option to eliminate class rank at Westmont High School. We support the suggestion that was mentioned a year ago that this type of policy change should begin with an incoming class. So we would like to update our proposal to suggest that class rank be eliminated with the incoming freshman class of 2022. Finally, on a personal note, especially now as I'm expecting my first child, I want to share that I'm grateful to live in a school district that has already eliminated the use of class rank. I want to help my child celebrate all of his personal accomplishments without being unnecessarily compared to his friends and classmates. Undoubtedly, future colleges and universities will review his GPA and test scores, but those data points will strictly reflect his own talents without placing him in an outdated comparative line next to his peers. While our department and our school could just move forward by following the status quo, Westmont High School will always strive to better itself for the benefit of its students. In our professional opinion, eliminating the use of class rank is one such way to help our students. We hope this information clarifies the questions the board posed to us last year. Thank you so much for your consideration and support.
Larissa, I just have a couple of things. You mentioned a meeting that was held.
Yes,
When was that meeting held?
that was held immediately after the presentation to the school board.
Do you know what date that was? Because I
Didn't hear anything about it.
didn't hear
know
anything
about
about it.
You were in attendance.
I was in attendance?
Yes.
What day was it?
It was in May of 2017, following our school board meeting.
Okay, I'll look back at my notes and see that,
Sounds
because
good.
I don't remember that.
Thank you for your consideration.
One more thing,
Yes.
just since you brought this to us.
Yes.
Kevin and I talked about this last week, and what we had decided was that in the fall, we will be talking about this as a board, and have a presentation at the board meeting about that at that time. Because a couple of things that, just for the community to know if they weren't watching the previous discussion, there was talk about potentially doing this after the current kids are out of the school. So waiting to an incoming freshman class from the kids that are not in the school yet. So that was one of the comments a couple of the comments that were made at that board meeting that we had. So we are going to be discussing this topic with a full presentation in the fall.
And in the fall, I'm going to be taking my maternity, so I wanted to make
Right.
sure that this year, I didn't want any member of the board to feel like we, as a school, as a department, as a staff, did not follow up and collect this data through our advisory council this school year. So before I do take my leave, I wanted to make sure that I had an opportunity to share this with you, and I understand that that will be continued in the fall as well. So
Yeah,
thank you.
I
do
just wanted
appreciate that.
people to know, because by your presentation, it sounded like you were looking for something to happen now.
Absolutely not.
And so we will be.
I wanted to make sure to share that updated
Yes.
information that was
Okay.
requested of us last May.
Right,
So,
right. We will.
Thank you.
We will be doing that. We will be doing it.
Fantastic.
And good luck with your
Thank you.
time off.
Thank you very much. So, all right, have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Number 1, personnel recommendations. Support staff, Benjamin Paget, temporary technology support district-wide. Edmund Posada, temporary summer work district-wide. Adrian Garcia, temporary summer work district-wide. Long-term substitute, Kristen Sisto, counselor, Westmont High School. 2, student tour request. 3, approval of towel service. 4, approval of athletic trainer contract. 5, renewal of student accident insurance. 6, adoption of 2018-2019 routine business office resolutions. 7, policy, second reading. 8, approval of board travel expenses. 9, resolution to abate working cash funds. 10, approval of additional May 2018 expenditure report. 11, approval of June 2018 expenditure report. And 12, ratification of May 2018 regular payroll.
So moved.
Second?
And roll call, please.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mr. Stromeyer?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
Mrs. Coyle?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carried. Okay, the first item for discussion, information dual language program report update.
Thank you for welcoming me back to the school board meeting. I'm Tim Weiler, principal at Miller Elementary School. Just over this last 7 days, South School and Manning had updated their enrollment systems, and we have some accurate data to share with the board about our incoming kindergarten classes. So kind of working backwards, we have a total of 108 students that are currently registered for kindergarten next school year. Of those, I'll start with Manning. They have 7 students that are currently enrolled in the half-day kindergarten program, which I believe is a little bit more than they had this past year. 43 students that are registered for the full-day English program that they offer and have been offering. 14 students and families are interested in the dual language program. Of the 14, 7 are confirmed and in the dual language program for next school year. 7 are on a waiting list, which leaves Manning at 57 currently enrolled students that will be going to school at Manning next school year. Of the 7 students that are confirmed in the dual language program, 3 are Spanish-speaking students, 4 are English-speaking students, and the remaining 7 on the waiting list are English-speaking students, because we currently have what we try to follow is our Spanish-speaking students have priority in the dual language program because it is an ELL program. Moving into Miller, we have no students registered in the half-day program. We have 29 that are registered in the full-day English program, 15 interested in the dual language program. Of those 15, 10 are confirmed in the dual language program. 4 are Spanish-speaking students, and 6 are English-speaking students. And so we have a total of 34 students that are currently slotted for English kindergarten next school year. So that's our current update on student registration numbers.
What was that last number you just said? What did you say?
34 students are currently registered for the English kindergarten program at Miller.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, how was it 34? You said 29 were full English, 15 dual, 10 confirmed, 4 spoke Spanish and 6 spoke English. So the 6 that spoke English are also being considered as part of the 34?
No.
My number wrong.
Yeah,
So dual language interest is different than confirmed. So there's 15 that are interested in the dual language program for Miller, 10 are in the program. So that means there's 5 left over.
There's 5 on a wait list.
So that's
Okay.
where our 34 is.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you.
No,
Thank you.
no problem. Again, the number that we're trying not to go over 24 in any class. If we do at 24, we do recommend teacher assistant support, and I know Mrs. Clowder has already set up teacher assistant support in most of the kindergarten classes once they reach a certain level, especially if there's a number of students with individual education plans there in the classroom. This past year at Miller, we had a TA in both the English kindergarten class and the dual language kindergarten classroom. Questions?
Yes. So, and I don't know who this question goes to. So right now, if nothing changed right now, you would have how many kids in the dual language program?
17,
You'd have 17.
with room for 7 students that are on the waiting list. So if nothing else changes, no other student registers for the program, the first 7 students on the waiting list will be in the dual language program, because we would recommend a class no higher than 24
Okay.
in that classroom.
Do
So,
you have the ratio, sorry.
No.
Do you have the ratio you need of Spanish first language to English?
We
first
currently have
language?
7 Spanish-speaking students. It hasn't changed from a month ago. 7 Spanish-speaking students that are currently registered, and we kind of capped it at 10 right now, leaving 7 spots open. And like I said, if we go back, based on patterns from the last 3 years, we always have 1 or 2 Spanish-speaking students that do register from now until the start of school year. So we're anticipating, 2 to 3, which would leave room for 4 students to, if we just use average numbers, average percentages from the last couple of years.
so that kind of was going towards so the 7 that you say you want to leave 2 or 3 for students that you probably don't know about yet, right? That have to register?
Yes.
Okay, so then the other 4, is that what we're talking about now? Where do they come from? Or is that a first come, first serve?
No, there's a waiting list, and parents that are, there's 12 students on the waiting list right now.
Right.
All families have been notified of where they stand on the waiting list based on when they registered this
Okay,
past year.
so that's-
Next year, we will be having different conversations about
Okay.
having a lottery a lot earlier in the year, getting our marketing and publicizing out a lot earlier, so all families have kind of a fair shot at getting into the dual language program.
Okay. And so the students, these 7, are they all English speaking?
Anyone's on the waiting list is confirmed not a Spanish speaker.
Okay,
Because if they were a Spanish speaker,
They would be-
they would automatically be in the program, or if they're a sibling of a student that's in the program, they would have kind of like second rights to the dual language program.
okay. So let's assume,
Yeah.
for discussion's sake, just for numbers, that you take this, you get the full dual language class. So does that leave Manning with 50 students as 50 kindergartners, or is that the 7? Do you know what I'm saying?
They would be at 57, is that right, Tim?
So what's,
They're currently at 57 with 7 kids in a half-day program. So they currently have 50 full-time kindergarten students.
yeah, so I'm just talking right now the full-time, so it's
Yes.
50. So would that mean then we have 2 classes of 25?
Right now, it's Manning set up for 3 sections,
Oh, okay,
so it'd be 3
So-
sections.
17 each, okay. And then at Miller, so you have the 29 in the full English class, and then.
With 5 students that are also included in that number right now.
So 34,
34.
so half of that's 17. So,
It's a large.
so for that,
classroom.
and is there 2?
See,
there's
I
only
think that's
one.
what Tim's trying to convey.
That's it.
It's only one.
There's one.
That
Yeah.
Miller has 2 sections, one's a
Yeah.
DL, dual
Right.
language, and one's monolingual. So the issue is, right now, as it stands, we'd have 34 students for one section. So Tim and I will need to take a look at that number and figure out possible solutions for that. for
Sure,
that class.
okay. That's where I was getting at,
Yeah.
the numbers, where they,
Even if we took a fair estimate and said 3 native Spanish-speaking students did register from now until the start of the school year, the first 4 students on the waiting list, there's 2 Manning students and 2 Miller kiddos. So you can kind of assume 2 students from each school would be placed into the dual language program, as long as the parents would still want that opportunity. So you could realistically say 55 students at Manning will be attending kindergarten, and 24 students obviously in the dual language class, and about 32 students in the English kindergarten class at Miller.
So the one English kindergarten class at Miller would have 32
Wow.
students, is what we're saying.
That is something that Mr. Carey and I
Yeah.
think we'll need to
Right,
discuss. 'Cause
right.
that kind of number in a kindergarten class,
Yeah.
yeah, that's,
Yeah,
It's
that's a
unwieldy.
challenge.
Yeah.
So the issue is a space issue though, right?
Pardon me?
It's a space issue.
Space issue, Mrs. Peterzak and I had spoken in great detail about getting really creative with our building space. I can free up a classroom at Miller and for teachers that kind of see smaller group students and kind of use more of a flexible model. Mrs. Peterzak has 2 classrooms that she could do the same thing. Right now, they're being occupied by either special ed, ELL, or reading specialists, but we can get extremely creative with our building space to make something work to open up a classroom, if need be, in one of the 2 buildings.
But if we split it, it doesn't just become space, it becomes staff
Right.
issue. It becomes a
Correct.
staff issue, too.
Staff issue.
And it's, because they stay together, it's
Right.
not just for kindergarten, it's.
Yeah, so Tim, what is the
Right.
class size of the next year's first graders? Is there one class, one section, 2 sections?
At Miller or Manning?
Miller, sorry.
Miller, 1 dual language and 1 English.
And how large is that class? Is it
Both are, 1 is at 22 and 1's at 23.
Okay, this is a,
Those are our 2 largest class sizes at Miller this past year.
What's the typical increase? Or is there a typical increase going from kindergarten to first to second?
You know what, Lindsay, Mrs. Peterzak, Mrs. Wozak and I did speak about our first grade transfer in rate this year was a little bit higher than normal. If we follow that trend, I believe at Manning, they had 5 to 7 new first graders, and at Miller, we had 3 to 4, but then we also had 2 to 3 that transferred out. So at Miller, it was almost like a break even. I think we ended the year with 1 more first grader than we started with, but it was definitely a different group of kiddos. And Manning, for sure, their first grade population increased by, I think, like 4 or 5 from the start to the end of the year.
You know, I have a note here that we had asked about demographics, and if we could find out, we've done those in the past, where we look
Oh,
at
yeah, projections, yeah.
projections,
Yeah.
because that might be really helpful here, because we know just from our current student body throughout the district that there's some really big classes and then there's some really small classes. So that might help us with this conversation. Because, you know, Westmont is becoming the place to live. And there's a lot of families. I mean, I know just on my block alone, there's a lot of new families. So it might be a discussion that we need to have in a bigger discussion than just the dual language. No offense to dual language, but I'm just saying
No,
that
it's, right.
it's a bigger
Capacity.
question. So
Sure.
if we can, because Joel, do you remember having that like years ago? We had a
Yeah,
demographic study.
what was it
Were
called?
you-
There was a name to the report, I remember it.
Casarda. Wow. Was it Casarda?
I think so.
Is it?
Yeah.
Ring a bell? Okay. That might be, I know,
That was a consultant, basically, that came in and did a whole projection for the area and all of that. So I don't know.
Yeah, there's other
That's-
services that exist. You send them your current enrollment figures, and I think you like a 5-year span, and then they also look at the birth rates in DuPage County, and from there they come up with 3 different models for you to look at in terms of potential growth within your district.
is that something we could do sooner rather than later?
Yeah, we can get that going.
And I would request that this report actually be put into board docs, because following along with all those numbers was a little difficult, and I really need
Yeah.
a point of reference. I really wish it would have been in there before today's meeting.
Yeah, and you know, the one other thing, the report that was in last meeting was different than the one you used. So can we get the whatever the current copy
Got it.
is, and then, yeah, to have the numbers.
Should,
And so, again, the dilemma, what do we, so are we gonna be talking about this again in July?
Right, in July, we'll have some suggestions for the class sizes at Miller, and then also for dual language.
Okay. That's all my questions, so I don't.
Any other questions?
No.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Alex.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the summer facility projects update.
We've attached a report for you at the high school. We're working on getting the desks ordered. The gym flashing and drains will probably be done in early fall based on contractor availability. The Vulcan Range combo oven, we did not receive the grant, so we're working with Fran about timing of this purchase and would bring that back to the board at a later date. The screening and restriping of the gym floor, that will be done actually in June of 2019. That was as soon as that we could get that accomplished.
That's, I had a note, that's next year?
Yes.
Okay, I had a question, okay, never mind.
And then landscaping, the perimeter landscaping's been completed. Now they're gonna be doing a new tree at the front entrance. And then quite a few of those evergreens have died. So the contractor for the 2016 renovation projects will be replacing that. At the junior high, the electric strike for the vestibule work's completed, and they're doing some final testing for that. On the masonry work, we're waiting for a cost verification on that. The floor tile abatement is scheduled for July 2nd through the 5th, and then the carpet installation will be done shortly after that abatement work is completed and the necessary testing has been done. At Manning, Mike is reviewing the scope of work for the boiler, pipe repairs, and the fin tube next week, and then we'll get that going after he meets with a contractor. The building automation module, reviewing with the contractor in early July. The grounds department has reseeded both the playgrounds at Manning, and then he'll be working on getting the fencing put in. At Miller, they will be doing the vinyl stair treads very soon. And the boiler ignition controls, again, meeting with the contractor the week of June 25th. And then South School, again, the boiler controls that same week. And then landscaping, he's gonna start in late July to early August. And then the parking lot seal coating and striping and stuff will start in early July. Any questions?
Building automation module, what is that?
That's for part of the HVAC system.
Okay, okay. So where did we end up with, I know, because we talked about this at the facilities committee and then here, have we finished with the bill from Steve Cashman?
I just got it, we just paid it now, and we have one more Pepper bill, which we'll be paying before June 30th. And then we'll know exactly where we're at and start on those other projects with that remaining money.
Okay, okay. Okay, that's all I have. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. The next discussion item, Certificate of Excellence.
Just letting the board know that each year we submit our comprehensive annual financial report to ASBO, the Association of School Business Officials International, for recognition. And this was the 12th, for the 16-17 audit, that was the 12th year that the district has received the financial award recognition. So just giving the board an update about that.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you. It's a lot of work, and it's got a lot of very useful information for the community about what happens in our schools. Also, if we issue bonds, it's a very useful tool for that as well.
That's great. Okay, was that it on that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And then now grant update.
So we have applied for several additional grants from over the course of the year. The first one, I'm happy to announce that the district will receive the Competitive Preschool for All grant, which funds our First Start program. Linda wrote with that with a little bit of help from me. And so if we did not receive that grant, we would have had to figure out funding for our First Start program for the 18-19 school year. So we were very happy to receive information that we were awarded that grant again for next year. And then during just a month or so ago, Linda received notice that there was some extra money that the state had in the Preschool for All grant for the current fiscal year 17-18. And so we wrote for some additional funding. The current grant does not cover all of our costs to transport our students. And so the additional cost that the board, the district pays above and beyond the grant is $35,000. So we requested that money and we have been awarded that. So we will be receiving that, and that program is fully funded. Then the high school applied for funding through the ISB Title I grant to cover the cost of AP exams for our low-income students. Typically, the college board had just automatically given us a discount for that in conjunction with ISB. That didn't happen this year. We had to actually apply for grant funding. We were allotted $11,400 based on an estimate of the number of students that were going to be taking the tests, and we'll receive $6,194 based on our actual number of students. And then we applied for the fiscal year 18 National School Lunch Program Equipment Assistant Grant from the state for the funding for the combi oven, and we were not awarded that grant. The districts with a higher percentage of low income and stuff were awarded that grant ahead of us. And then
Kim, before you move off of that, so how much did we ask for? Like, what does this thing cost?
I don't recall. Okay. So it's in the probably $5,000 to $10,000 maybe.
Okay.
Not sure. I did not update that part.
That's fine.
The junior high received the Fuel Up to Play 60 grant in the amount of $5,550, and they're going to use that to improve health and wellness at the junior high. And I'm sure John will have more information on that in the weeks ahead. And then Michelle Therese received an FY18 Library and Tech Act grant in the amount of $4,999. And these funds will be split by the schools for library materials, and they'll be spending that money in next fiscal year. And then last June, the board approved the high school's grant application with the Clean Energy Community Foundation for the installation of the solar panel. The high school was working on that, and the deadline was April. They applied for an extension, and they have to complete this project by the end of July. They're still working out some things. They've had some problems with the installer, and even the one that they want to use now is probably not one that we can use. So Mike's working with them to try and figure out how we can make this happen. And that's all I have.
Can I first of all say thank you for this? This was really wonderful to find out about the grants, and I have to say thank you to you, and Linda is here, so thank you very much, because it is wonderful to try to get this money that's out there from the state. Not that they're usually throwing money at the schools, but this is really a great thing to find out. That I know grant writing, I've never done it. I've heard it's
a lot of work.
I see faces of people who have. It's a lot of work. So,
yeah.
Just as
good job
as a sitting board member, I just have to say thank you for those that have gone out of their way to apply for these grants. And great news about being able to fully fund this preschool and all these other things. So.
Yeah. Well, and the Preschool for All too, I mean, it helps, again, the quality of the program.
Absolutely.
Is another piece that really helps us receive that grant funding as well, so.
It's all good, so thank you. Thank you. And to those that are not here who did too, so thank you. Okay, so we have action items. The first one is approval of lunch fees.
So when we approved lunch, or our school prices, school fees, at the February 27th board meeting, I did let the board know that we did not have all the information we needed at that point to review our lunch fees, and would be coming back to you at a later board meeting if we needed to raise them. And according to the paid lunch equity calculation that we're required to do, we do have to raise prices on lunches by 10 cents for student meals and 50 cents for the, 35 cents for the adult meal for next year. So those the current prices are shown, as well as what they're going to increase to. And so I just need approval for that, and then we'll add that to our school fee sheet.
Okay, before we do that, any questions? Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the lunch fees for the 2018-2019 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Rudy.
Yes.
Mr. Stromeyer.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong.
Yes.
Mrs. Coyle.
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carried. The next one is benchmark advanced ELA curriculum approval.
And we're going to have Nadine share with the board some background information.
Good evening, the Board of Education and Mr. Carey. You have a pretty significant narrative in your board packet. I hope you've had time to review it. It indicates that it's been about 10 years since we've adopted a program or any core materials for our English Language Arts program that includes reading, skills, writing, language, vocabulary, spelling. At this current time, we have fully implemented the Common Core. We've been working on some pretty extensive professional development for our teachers. It's time to look to see if we can find a comprehensive group of core materials for our teachers to use in the classroom. As until this time, we hadn't found one that met our needs, and we're happy that we were able to meet with the folks from Benchmark and review these materials and present these to our staff members as well as our administrators. And this material, and as you can tell from the narrative, it fits the bill with regard to alignment to the standards, as well as being a very comprehensive program that embeds teaching and learning in all of those areas of English Language Arts in a unit that is aligned to the NGSS standards, as well as units that align to the new social studies standards. So the other exciting part about this set of core materials is that the reading that the students will be doing, the reading and writing the students will be doing embedded in the language arts block, will provide background knowledge for the inquiry that they would be doing during the science class or the social studies class. So we are excited about these, how this will enhance teaching learning, not just for the EL or the English Language Arts block, but also provide the right kind of text, the right kind of background knowledge for social studies and for science. So if you have any questions.
Is that the stuff right there in your
That's
that big
the
old
stuff.
box that you brought?
Yeah, that's the stuff. It's kind of
I mean, you brought it, so
yeah,
you know we might
show
as
and
well.
tell. Yeah.
I would just be curious to just take a look at
As you
one
can
or
see, the
something
core
and-
program includes teachers' guidance. There's what's included in that box. I think what you pulled out of the unit guide, that's the unit
Teachers.
guide. There's another unit, there's another teacher's guide for the program that would be sort of the supplemental or the for students who might need yet more differentiation. There's student consumables that are kind of like magazines that have current events and informational texts, and they're designed for students to highlight and to annotate. Also included in that material are guides for assessment, for targeted lessons for grammar, spelling, and vocabulary. There's informational text and literature that students would use during small group instruction that would be based on their reading level. So there's every grade level for every unit would get a number of different texts for teachers to select from that would be targeted for a specific unit or a specific theme.
Is that this thing?
Yeah, that's the magazine type thing that I was referring to. That's the student consumable. And so students, we do what we call close reading, where we read an article several times to try and get, first to develop some skills and then to read to learn. And so students have a chance to annotate and to write about what they're reading.
Yeah, that's interesting right here.
Really purposeful.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone can see this, but it, so it has the paragraphs and then the kids can annotate right over
Right.
there.
So
So
that-
do they each get this?
They each get that, yeah. They each get a set of them, actually. And each of those magazine-type consumables are all around those themes of social studies and science.
And then this one is in Spanish. So
Right,
we have-
all these materials come in Spanish, so the dual language students will be supported with materials that will be in both English and Spanish. The students who are in the ELL programs that are outside of the dual language program will be provided with a source that would be aligned to those same units.
Nadine, at the Finance Committee, when we were talking about this meeting, there was also some material that you needed for special education. Is that included in these costs?
The costs, I think we defined them as, you know, extra things that were available. We haven't committed to purchasing those materials. We have those prices. We'd ask the board to consider them under the condition that we
Don't we need them?
cover that. Well, here's the thing that's important to know. The program itself provides a significant amount of differentiation. So the special education teachers will, when they push in to the classrooms, will be using the same materials that the classroom teachers will use. The materials that we're looking at in terms of the extra materials, those are taking those same unit plans and those same text materials and writing them in such a way or presenting them in such a way that it further differentiates. So it would be a consideration that we could purchase those extra materials, not just for the special education teachers to use during the push-in model, but also for the reading specialists for intervention and also for, and this would be what we're really excited about, is for the regular education teachers to supplement our differentiation, to give students access to text that would be not just below their frustration grade level, but written in a way that would make it even more accessible. And the guidance for teachers in that particular element or component of the program provide extensive and purposeful instruction in terms of how teachers should reach those kids. So in terms of whether or not we need the program, we feel really strongly about those components and the strength of the way they're created. But we want to make it clear that they're not just for special education teachers or for children with individualized learning programs, but they potentially could be used by any of our teachers because it just makes the strength of the differentiation go even farther. The other part of the program, which isn't featured in that box, is an intervention program that is geared toward foundational literacy, phonetic awareness, phonics, and that particular program would be, that particular set of materials would be available to meet the needs of our students who are struggling with text in early elementary.
I just also pulled out, like, these seem to be the science thing.
Okay, so that for example, would be a small group instruction text material, so I'm gonna pull a small group based on skill level, reading level, however it is that I think is appropriate to meet those needs. And that reader would be what the students would use to engage with that text. And now those, that's, for example, 1 of 10 for that particular unit. So the 10 titles would be in varying reading levels around a range for that grade level, but it would all be geared toward that theme that we'd be studying in, for nonfiction, for informational text.
And the only question I have here, well, not a question, but you say that through surveys and discussions, the Manning and Miller teachers have unanimously supported this opportunity. That seems...
The way we approached this evaluation was that there's not a lot out there in terms of materials that are this extensive and this comprehensive. So while we were doing the evaluation process with the math program and the teachers were engaged in that, you know, looking at the 3 different programs and trying different lessons and having those discussions, most of the teachers said, yes, and what about English language arts? Because the challenges we have with regard to developing our own materials and creating our own assessments, that's not just for math. That's also for English language arts. And we talked about that a couple board meetings ago. So the administrators looked at several different programs. This particular program was the one that was most closely aligned to not just our vision and mission in terms of the way we teach, but it also is aligned to the Fontes and Pinnell assessments that we use in the classroom. So this group of materials would be the one that would fit the bill in terms of how we do things anyway. We wouldn't have to do a lot of shifting of assessment, strategies, or anything like that. So then when we talked to the publisher and got some materials in hand, we first started to sort of talk to the teacher leaders and sort of built on from there. So the teachers took a look at the materials, much like in the kit that you're looking at, and then we provided for them online access of everything. So most of the teachers had a chance to not just review the materials, but try some things out. And we had lots of discussions during PLCs and during other opportunities where we meet as a group. And we gave a survey about the materials, but we also surveyed the teachers in terms of their capacity to take on that amount of change. So we have 6 new staff members, or not new staff members, but 6 staff members in our 2 elementary buildings that are changing assignments next year. So it seems like that we're in a great this would be a great opportunity to take on something like this, because for at least those 6 staff members, they would have to, we don't have anything to hand them. They would just have to, you know, fumble their way through just like we've been doing. So this makes sense, because now for everyone we have at least some guidance to begin our journey with this material. Does it help a little?
So I need you to back up to the special ed piece again, and Gary, what you had said. So
do we
rewind on that, please, for me?
He asked, don't we need this?
And it's not in this 155?
The program in your packet, we don't call it special ed.
Mm-hmm.
It's Steps to Advance is the program that is aligned, I keep calling it a program, it's really core materials. Core materials that are aligned to the benchmark advance classroom materials, but they are written in a way that further differentiates for our students who are struggling.
So it's an additional differentiation component to this program.
Yes.
We do or do not have that slated with this material here?
It's in your, it is indeed in your.
Can I-
It's included in the cost estimate.
Wait, let me clarify just a little bit so that you can see, because what was presented for us to review in the finance committee It was called special ed. It's really like intervention materials. So after I went back and shared with Nadine our conversations, she reviewed it further, and the terminology should probably be intervention versus special ed, so a change from what was shared with us for the finance committee. Then in your cost, we're looking at the cost of the materials that we're looking to purchase right now is $155,373. Those additional those intervention materials are part of the $58,005 of additional funding. So Nadine was going to wait on purchasing those intervention materials at this time until we get in, and she gets in and has the teachers start utilizing the program and see if they truly need those additional intervention materials, correct?
Correct. So the answer to the question is, do we need them? We don't, I can't answer in terms of whether we need it or not until we get the core materials into the classroom. We are interested in the way that those intervention programs are written, but, and they're included in the total cost.
Yes, we're asking
Budgeted
so we're asking for the budget to be increased from what I'm presenting tonight by the $58,005 for her, so that she is able to purchase those if necessary. And that $58,000 includes the additional component that can't be covered by the building budgets, and then plus the intervention materials. But she's not sure if she's going to need that whole 58, because she's not sure she's going to ultimately purchase those intervention materials.
So you need to buy that in a block, 58,000 for that additional component.
The additional materials, they're
You're like the additional materials. So if you look under the first box, where it's where you've got the Manning cost and Miller cost. Yeah. So the Manning cost is $62,000. The Miller cost is $37,800. Their building budgets, the next line, that's what their building budgets can absorb of that cost. And so the necessary allocation from the board to complete the purchase of those materials is the $27,455 and the $7,330. Those two dollar amounts, plus if you go to the next box, the additional purchase options for the $10,904 and the $8,358, that is the $58,005.
So that material was presented at the Finance Committee as special education, but we're
so
kind of
it's
back down.
that $20,000 that we're not sure if we're going to purchase or not. Nadine would let people know later in the year as she reviewed it, but she's looking for the authorization to incorporate that in the budget if it's determined that those materials need to be purchased.
So it's going to be implemented in the fall.
Yes.
We're going to wait a year before we decide if those are necessary. We're going
I don't know.
Or we're going to.
I don't want to say we'd wait a year, because the teachers know about these other materials, so I think what Kim is saying is that we would like the availability to purchase those materials if we see that they fill a gap, they fill a need. However, I'm not inclined to include them in the initial first order that I'm going to put through for next week, for example. So we see the value, but we are implementing this program, these materials, and it's a lot, so we may need some time to put them into place in the classroom with our resource teachers and our read specialists and all of those, with all that support in mind. We may not be purchasing those with the initial purchase, but I would like for the board to consider that we have that availability as an option.
I support having the availability, and I'm just questioning if we're buying a comprehensive package for all of our students to meet all of their varied needs. Well, we're going to wait on this piece to see if we can kind of fill in. That doesn't sit real well in my mind. because you have students who are already with additional needs, and now we're gonna wait and see, can we really make do or not? I don't like that element.
Yes, I agree.
So if it was my preference, and I was making this decision alone, I'd say you're putting down this piece of, this financial expenditure for a comprehensive program for all of our students. Why hold off on this little piece here, which is a couple percentages of the total cost? Something to think about. I mean, that's my opinion.
I appreciate that viewpoint a great deal because I guess if you're thinking about the cost alone, if we're trying to be conservative, but I can tell you that as an administrative team and the educators that I've been working with this year, they don't want students who have the highest need to be put second. So that being said, if this program is as comprehensive as we believe it is, our core instructional practices, we expect there to be improvement. The availability of these materials that are going to further access the text for our students who struggle is of significant interest to us. That's why they're there. That's why we put them in your packet.
I guess I would ask some sort of expedited evaluation of the components, maybe in cooperation with special ed department or whoever is going to be utilizing them to see. I mean, they should know based on the student population that they've served in the past, this piece would be really good for student X who has this issue, or student Y who has this other piece. So they should be able to see that and say this would be valuable, or they can say, no, you know what, really, this should be covered in the general differentiation of the instruction.
Normal modification of.
Yeah.
We've had some pretty specific feedback from our special ed team. I do think we need to talk about it or kind of make sure that all of the administrative team is on the same page, because we have had teachers look at the materials and identify specific situations. However, it's important to understand the implications of the model that we're going to be implementing, which is the co-teaching model, where the special education teachers will be a resource within that classroom. So we want to respect that teaching model and make sure we have the right pieces in place. The part we're talking about, we believe would support that model, but we need to, and then the expedited evaluation would be in order, and I will promise you that will happen.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I think what not knowing, I don't have a teaching degree, it would seem to me that if we're going to do this whole thing as a core instruction, why would we
wait?
Because if you're going to be using all this and then you're in the middle of it and all of a sudden the teachers that are doing special ed, they would be like, so then those kids that have the need would be playing catch up? Is that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Joel, but that's what I was.
So I take great pride in the district that we have and the resources we have to have a very inclusive classroom environment in K-5. We're really trying to get our special ed teachers to master the curriculum just like the gen ed teachers. This is a perfect opportunity to get them to master the curriculum, because it's almost like they've been on islands working in their own machines, doing great things, but this is a good way for them to collaborate on really getting to know a curriculum for the first time from in and out at a grade level using math and ELA. We're really holding the special ed teachers accountable to master that, not just the goals that the kids have in their IEPs, but to master the curriculum. We feel it's going to enhance our special ed program because we offer such an inclusive environment. We are trying to move away from having kids go to another classroom with other students in a small environment to learn. We want them to learn with their peers. And so this is just a way for, I feel, as the principal at Miller, our teachers they're going to have a lot of collaboration from gen ed, special ed to ELL, where they're going to master a program. And I do feel, in my opinion, we need a little bit of time to know if we're going to go to the next level of support, because I really feel this program has a lot to offer our special ed staff when they're working with students. They might just be a little behind on a skill. They can utilize the second grade material working with a third grade student. We might not need to dig into this other resource just yet. And I've been working with Benchmark for 2 years, working with the reps, and I've dug very deep because we're looking for a Spanish material for our ELA program as well, and this just offers a blend of both worlds. I don't know if the right decision would be to buy it now. And even the representatives that I've talked to, master the universal curriculum piece and then see what you need from there. And I think having the availability of having the funds is awesome, and we will try to expedite, but my recommendation would definitely be to hold off, and we will try to make that decision as soon as possible. But in order for me to hold the special ed teachers accountable for understanding the curriculum, because they're going to be getting it at a different level, and how we're going to provide the professional development, it would offer us a lot of good service in terms of getting them on board when we're getting the whole staff on board with math and benchmark. So that's just my 2 cents. I'm sorry for stepping in, but.
In respect to that, are we asking our special ed teachers then to basically be in a situation similar to where they are now, where they're making modifications for students individually without, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it, we're asking them to ride a bike without training wheels, because we're giving them the whole package, but without guidance on modification. So if they make modification now, we realize maybe that isn't the best way to do it. Then we go back, we're asking them to relearn another set of modifications that fit the program more appropriately.
I think that's a valid perspective to look at the riding the bike or with the training wheels. I firmly believe that the 2 core resources that we're providing is going to take our staff to the next level in terms of the materials that our students will have at their fingertips. I believe they're going to have exponentially number of tools to use to get students to engage and learn at the different levels that they need to learn. I can't really speak to the future in terms of, I really feel the curriculum resource that we're looking at is going to enhance every level of both school buildings.
There's a couple things at play. First of all, the way the material is designed is that the units are aligned K through 5. So, and they're taught at the same time. So the materials the teachers will have access to will be across several grade levels. So there won't be this scramble to try and find something that meets students' needs based on their levels. In addition to that, well, first of all, we have wonderful professionals as our special education teachers, so they understand how to modify or build in or help students or support as they're developing background knowledge or foundational skills. The advantage of what we're getting in its entirety without those extra pieces is several reading levels within the grade level. And the program guidance for the teachers provides for, we call it tier 1. It's just, what happens in the classroom support for all teachers is going to enhance the core instruction to the degree that all of our students' needs will be making sure that all of our students are met to the best we can. There's some appeal to the materials that are aligned, but as Tim said, the materials are so strong, the classroom materials are so strong that we're confident that our research teachers and our reading specialists and anyone that helps our students will find a way to make this not just work, but really enhance the learning experience for all of our students. Not to say that there's not some strength in those other programs, but there's so much here that there's going to be plenty for the teachers to pull from.
If I was to reword what you just said, are you saying that the materials should be sufficient for all students? As like, your perception is that the materials that you were asking for are sufficient for all students, and this other piece may not be necessary? Is that what you're saying? For the specific students it's intended for?
No, I think the resources would be beneficial in order to get the teachers to master them. The logical way I've been talking with the benchmark company, getting them to master the universal level, and then getting them to kind of dive deeper into what the other program has to offer, gets them just to utilize all the resources to the best of their ability. Otherwise, we're going to have staff that understand this one tool but don't understand the universal tool. And the ultimate goal of anything is getting students to the grade level and to the standards that we're all trying to get them to master. I think, and this is just my opinion, I don't think we need it, but I think if the board is willing to utilize this resource, we're not going to say no. I think that's the bottom line is if we buy all three programs, the intervention, the benchmark, and the steps to advance, we will put them all to good use. I just want to make sure we're utilizing our professional development time to master everything we have at our disposal. And just like anything, everything there's certain things that we need to make sure are priorities, and all three are priorities. We just want to make sure our classroom instruction is top notch.
So you want to deploy time and resources to the main curriculum, master that. It's a timing issue.
Timing is,
so you want.
We're also taking over a math curriculum, which most districts don't do 2 major curriculums in a year, but our teachers, that's how bad they want both things right now. They were willing to sacrifice the amount of time because they know how much time is going to be given back to them having high quality resources.
Part of the issue that I have with these types, these recommendations come to us and we have to make a decision on them, and we know very little about the one-on-one instruction and all of these pieces. So I'm not going to get feedback from the special education teacher unless I have a special education student at Manning or Miller who's going to tell, well, we're going to have to do this, or it'd be nice if we had this. I might get a little feedback. So how is a board going to make a decision on something like this if we don't really have feedback from the teaching staff that are going to be implementing and utilizing this particular piece that we're saying, we don't know if you need it or not.
Right.
So in that situation, making a decision here, I'm leaning towards we should be comprehensive in our approach. And, utilize all our resources so that we get the whole package.
Can I ask a question? Because I want to follow up on another thing Joel's saying. I appreciate all this information. It's just that there's no totaling of money. There's just like this 155 at the end. Can we look at this first of all? So we first have this first box that says 62 Manning and 37 Miller. So part of what you're asking for us, because the motion, and the motion just says to approve the curriculum. So that we probably should have talked about.
So it was supposed to say what I put it,
Okay, well, anyway,
in here.
So I want to make sure that we're all on the same page because I still want to follow up on something like that. So we're being asked tonight to approve the curriculum, but also it has a money object, so I think to make sure.
So everything presented totals $155,373, okay? And we're asking to be able to buy the $155,000. They're asking for the board to allocate an additional $58,000 to the FY19 budget.
Okay, so that means on page 3 and 4, everything on there is 155 plus 158,
No, 155 is the total of everything.
total of every single thing.
Correct.
All the components.
Yes.
All components is 155. And 155 is in the budget for next year.
No. Of the 155, we need an
58.
additional 58.
So what is just a little under 100,000 is in the budget for this ELA for next year. And tonight, the question is, would we allocate the extra 58 to get every single thing that's here?
Right.
Am I correct on that?
Well, I mean, we were approving the total dollar amount, right? It was just gonna be a matter of whether we were gonna be spending the full
Whether
dollar
you-
amount or not.
Right. If you, and for you to,
And
right.
possibly when
Right.
that expenditure would happen.
Correct.
Okay, so I would have to totally, 100% agree with Joel, because again, we don't have the, we're asked these things, but we don't have that knowledge. And all I could think about was, like, we stack our libraries with all kinds of books on the chance that somebody needs that for a project. So I can appreciate that we want to get the teachers to learn this whole thing. But it seems to me, again, not having a teaching degree, that if I was a teacher, and especially if I was one-on-one with a student that had an IEP, and my student wasn't getting it, I would love to have something on the shelf, like a library, that I can just pull out and use, instead of waiting until people start saying, what would have been nice.
That's,
Does that make,
it makes perfect sense, and your analogy is a way to sort of illustrate the story. In reality, it doesn't quite work like that. It's not like a teacher's going to be missing something. There won't be something they're missing that they wish they had. The other thing that's important is that the administrative team is a really collaborative, hardworking team that we align to the same mission and vision. And Mr. Weiler's description of what's going on in his own building and how he holds his teachers accountable is aligned to the way Ms. Peterzak does those things as well. However, they aren't 100% in agreement for every single thing, every decision that they make. They have autonomy based on their own buildings. So I could foresee that at Manning in particular, based on conversations that I've had, that it's possible that those teachers might put those materials into place a little bit earlier based on their students. It's not based on decisions that principals make or based on, difference of opinion. It's just you have to do what you do based on the students. It kind of is as you described. If I have a child sitting in front of me who has this need, I want everything possible. I want every conceivable piece of material, every conceivable guidance that I can have to support this student. But we have to take into account the professionalism of our staff and how knowledgeable they are, and how that, whether or not they have the right book or it doesn't stop them from making every effort. It's our hope that, our expectation, even farther than our hope, it's our expectation that these materials in the core classroom will make a difference in terms of all of our students getting the rigorous instruction that is aligned to the standards, and that will indeed implicate the students with special needs. Will our teachers use supplemental materials? I don't doubt that they will, based on professional development. But as Mr. Weiler said, it's a lot to learn, so we want to make sure that the teachers understand how how these materials are written and what supports are built into the core materials. We don't want to assume that you have to right away go to materials that were written at a lower level or less rigorous or whatever, because it's our responsibility to provide a learning environment that's the least restrictive for everyone. We have to make sure that we provide materials that are as rigorous as the students have the capacity to engage with. So we are interested in those supplemental materials. We reviewed them. We had this special education teachers look at them. We like the way they look. We think they're useful, but we're so confident of our experience and the way when we take on the core materials, we're so confident that things are going to improve for all of our students that that's why it was a thought that we should start with that. But I do agree with you, Mr. Price. I do want to make sure we have everything we need for all of our students, and that there is some appeal.
Well, if the special education team is going to be mastering this core curriculum along with the gen ed teachers, it seems to me you would want the full breadth of the program. I mean, if it's all linked together, so what happens if they're missing a piece? They're going to go search for some supplemental something over here that they can find on their own, or maybe something that they used here in the past that works in this situation, but it's not linked to that. It's not aligned to what everyone else is getting. So then you're kind of defeating the purpose of having an overarching program. If bits and pieces are being pulled in, they may be very usable, very well tried, true, tested, and very, very comfortable using them, but it's not in sync with what we're trying to do if we're putting a whole system in place.
Can we, and I understand the idea of if we don't have it, we can't depend on it. I understand that. I'm a big fan of that theory. But I think, as you said, it's got to be an aligned system, and it's obviously a very well thought out system. There's no doubt that this is the right direction as far as the overall core instructional material. I think the pieces hanging off this very extensive skeleton need to be there, I guess. So I think they need to be in place if the decision is made, and my personal experience tells me that we have amazing professionals in special education. But if we don't have immediately for their access what they need, I think we're asking them to wing it, for lack of a better way to say it. Not that their winging it is so much better than anything I could ever possibly do myself.
And not that they won't be doing that also, even if they have the whole package.
Yeah, there's no guarantee that we won't be a little winging happening everywhere, but because that's the nature of education, we do what's best for the children.
And I think that having this material on hand is the best option for these kids. If in the process, administrators and teaching leaders decide we're gonna put it on a shelf and you're not allowed to touch it for 3 months, but we're gonna have it here, because within that 3 months, if something comes up that says, hey, this isn't working for student X or student Y, then you can go to it. But maybe it's under lock and key for a little while, and that's okay too, But I think having it is really important, because I think having the aligned system is what's going to be the difference for some kids.
That's kind of where I was going with it a little bit, because, and I'm going to ask a real hard question here, because I kind of do that sometimes.
Yeah, my friend
Are you concerned? I don't think that, and I hope that it's coming across that no one here, at least I know I'm not, second guessing the administration and the teaching staff and that staff at all. It's just we're being asked this difficult question, and I know I'm trying to understand it. So is there a concern that people will default to this second thing as opposed to this? Is that
Not on my end. I just want everyone to
Okay.
master.
I was trying to go back to something you
Yeah.
had said earlier. Like, it sounded like you want people to do this and not rely on that? I was trying to follow something you said, Nadine, before.
I said.
You were talking about the collaboration of everybody
Right,
and
and
that, so I was, is there a
I
concern
don't,
about that?
I am not at all concerned about teachers relying on the supplemental materials versus those materials. In fact, the strength of those supplemental materials are the fact that they are so closely aligned with the core materials that they would be a useful tool for our classroom teachers. And that is why I personally, based on conversations that I've had with teachers and Ms. Peterzak and Mr. Weiler, but I personally can see the supplemental materials being utilized by not just those who help students that are struggling, but by our classroom teachers as they try and build those foundational skills for our students that come in that they don't necessarily qualify for special education, but they need a boost. So I am not, and if I gave the impression that I'm concerned about teachers relying on supplemental materials versus the core materials, that was a misunderstanding or a misspeaking on my part. The other thing that I'm trying to be sensitive of is that my position in this kind of relationship is that I'm kind of at the moment, I was the go-between until Tim helped me here, between the administrative team and the Board of Education. So, although we are aligned and we have the same mission and vision, the method in which we get there may be slightly different.
And that right there is why I know I feel this way. That if you guys have been looking at this for so long and you really believe this is quality stuff, and then they have this other thing that's there for kids, maybe not even just the special ed kids, but for these other kids who might learn a different way. I guess my question is, why wouldn't we just do it? Maybe that's, I don't know.
Maria, I was gonna say, can you restate why you didn't ask for it in the first place?
I could say I don't know enough about the steps to advance to make a decision for the building.
You haven't researched it?
I have not researched step to advance enough to back that piece up. I don't know the connection there. I do know the intervention piece is in line. I do know the ELL program that our ELL teachers will have is in line with the 10 units. And obviously, having the dual language resource and having them to collaborate on ELA and math together because they're teaching same standards at the same time of the year is priceless. So that's what I know about those components of the program. And I believe the conversations the special ed teachers are having possibly at Manning are a little bit different than maybe the one, and it's at the end of the year, and this kind of came up after the math cohort and the investigation was done, and it was the last month of the school year, but I had 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers come up to me and say, we'll go with any math program you want us to. You got to get us an ELA tool. Like, get us some more resources that we can use. We can provide great instruction every day. We just want to utilize our time planning more effectively, and the assessment pieces in here, the leveling, skills, interests, providing text at higher levels to one of the biggest tools that are research tools that are coming out nowadays is exposing students to a higher level of text than they can read on their own and comprehend on their own is an important tool they need in life, and it'll provide great things for them as they prepare for college and a career. So I'm not against anything, I just don't know enough about it.
So when we met as a finance committee, we asked the question, what is this? And we didn't know. We didn't talk about it. We didn't have a response. We had a little bit of a brief explanation. So this is, have we researched it enough? It seems like we should, it's a foregone conclusion, we should do it, but why haven't we researched it further? Or why, I don't understand why we didn't ask for it in the first place.
When we reviewed this program, the exposure to the core materials and this is not just this program, this is anything. When you review materials and you talk to other you do like a process, you talk to other school districts, you know, reach out to the publisher, you review the materials as best you can. You can only imagine what it looks like in the classroom, and you make a commitment to using the core materials with fidelity. So if you get the impression that we don't want the other materials, or that we didn't thoroughly research the other materials, the materials that are the supplemental materials, they were reviewed by not every single teacher. They were reviewed by the administrators and by the all of the interventionists, including the ELL teachers. So they didn't have access to teach with them in the same way that our classroom teachers did with Benchmark Advance. So based on the knowledge that we get from the publisher and being able to look through the materials, our special education teachers and our interventionists and including our reading specialists, they could envision what that would do for us. Ms. Peterzak took it one step further, and she could envision how those materials could then also support the core classroom. It's up to us to do the right work to make sure that our teachers master or capture or take advantage, leverage everything that we're providing, and their enthusiasm for these materials is going to make it work.
So is that core to the recommendation that you want them to master the core materials before the interventions are introduced? That's what I have been kind of hearing, and I just wanted to restate that and see.
For the staff?
For the staff.
Yes.
You want them to master the core materials
because our special education teachers are working more in line with inside the classroom, pushing in, providing the least restrictive environment for the students, and pulling out as little as possible and as needed, because there are certain situations where that is definitely a requirement. And so we're really trying to get them to collaborate more effectively on mastering the curriculum at the grade level in the 4 subjects that elementary teachers have to master, you know, reading, math, social studies, and science. And it's a daunting task, and we know we don't want to say we're biting off more than we could chew, but it's definitely going to be a challenging year mastering 2 curriculums. That's I guess the biggest thing I want everyone to understand is that is going to be a challenge, and we want to keep everyone as positive and motivating as possible and provide them with the best environment to learn from each other and learn from us and learn from the leaders that we have coming from the curriculum programs to give them what they need to really take and move forward in the right direction.
I mean, I guess I'm taking this from a different standpoint as many others who have spoken already. I really appreciate the approach you all have taken to ask us up front for the commitment of the funding, but then to essentially leave it in your hands to determine the timing of when we need those interventions, if we do need them. I think that's something that you all are going to be on the front lines of determining, and I appreciate that approach. I also just have a follow-up question to that. How long does it take to get the materials if it's determined that we need them? I mean, is there a long wait? Like, if you get 1 week into the school year and you determine you need the interventions, how long does it take to get the materials?
Within a couple of weeks.
Okay.
We could pretty much get sample teacher kits immediately if that's, maybe we want to get them in the hands of the teachers that will be utilizing them.
Yep.
They won't come with like the pack of student consumables, but it's a good chunk of information that teachers can kind of use to digest. And I could dedicate from now to the next board meeting to really understanding the steps to advance and come back with some kind of information with maybe if Ms. Peterzak is available or information that we can collaborate on.
Yeah. The other thing that's important to know is that we'll have access to everything online. Mm-hmm. So if teachers, teachers need something or want to see, what's available in the supplemental program, they won't have to guess.
It's immediate access.
It's immediate access.
Just have to print it out.
Yeah.
So that they will print their own material.
And we don't want to imply that we would be breaking copyright by printing it out before we purchase the materials, but we have access to the materials online to be able to more carefully review.
From day one.
So it's just a confusing message. It's a mixed message because you have a board that wants to support what you want to do fully and ready to spend money to do that, but you're not asking for everything. And it's just not real clear why you didn't ask for it. So I want to provide support, and I don't want to create work unnecessarily, but I just want to better understand why we wouldn't do it versus do it. I think what I'm hearing is let's master these 2 curriculums before a third for these specific teachers, and trust you to make those decisions or to think through that. But it seems like it's confusing why we didn't ask for it in the first place, and it wasn't very clear. So do we need to vote on the funding today?
Well, actually, what we have, and Rima just handed this to me, the motion just says to approve the curriculum, but what we could do, if you all look at the memo, it has a recommendation for in the amount of 155 and then allocate 58 in additional funding. So we could.
That's what the motion should be.
That's what the motion should be. Okay. So we could do that, but so that it could be the motion, I guess, but the question is still.
But these materials aren't 58.
They are. It's the.
See, this whole thing is.
So what
very
really
confusing.
what's
because
being
it's by grade
asked
level,
for
okay.
is to be able to purchase all of the materials. Nadine is asking though, saying that they might not purchase all of them at once, that the $18,000 or $19,000 of intervention materials she would buy at a later date. Okay, so the all materials listed here cost $155,000. In our budget, we have the sorry, I just lost my page. We have the $58,000. We don't have the $58,000 of that in our budget because some of the $155,000 is coming from building budgets, and part of it's coming from grants that are in place or we're going to have for next year, and so the additional piece. The additional funding is the $58,000 that we need to purchase that whole program. Out of that $155,000 though, she's might purchase some of it a little bit later after they get through and go through and start implementing the curriculum.
So Kim, to be specific on the numbers, because it's really confusing. Sorry.
Okay.
27 for Manning.
Yeah, hang on, let me find the page.
I'm rounding. 27 for Manning plus 7 for Miller's 34. Plus 11 for the intervention, and then 8 for the Miller intervention. That's 53 of the 58, plus the 4,000 below. That's your 58,000, right?
Yeah, sorry, my page moved on me. So the 58,000 is the 58,000. Yes, the 27,455 plus 7,330 plus the 10,904, the 8,358. And then I believe it should be the 1979 and 1979.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep. So you're asking us to approve the 58, and then, but you're telling us you're not going to spend on the 20 or the
Correct. They might not
24
spend that.
till later.
Right.
And we're saying why till later, but I think we can approve the 58.
That is what we could, I mean, that is certainly what we could do. I just want to make sure that we all understand, because I have one last question, unless we're ready to. It says here in the material that was given to us, these components are still under review. After our teaching staff becomes accustomed to these core materials, we will reevaluate any gaps in instructional materials. We know these components are available to support intervention and to increase the capacity for differentiation. And I guess my question is, isn't that what we do all the time?
Indeed.
So why wouldn't we have these on a shelf, locked up, something for that specific reason? So I guess that I guess I still struggle with that, and maybe some other board members
If
do.
if we allocate the funds,
Yeah.
there's no reason not to have them, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's-
yeah, I think we're in agreement on that,
Yes,
you know, I mean, I
yes.
think if we're gonna allocate, if the 155 that we're talking about, or the 58,000 that we're talking about covers everything, I don't know, save on shipping, get it all at once, I don't know, but, you know, let's.
Yeah, I mean, I
I'm sorry,
guess.
Mary, I've just got to say something. If I was a parent of a special needs student right now and I heard this at home, I would be charging to this board meeting
Yeah,
right now and saying,
I-
what are you guys doing? I'm sorry, guys, I mean, no offense to anybody, but if we're gonna allocate the funds, let's allocate the funds, let's buy the materials, and let's get every teacher as prepared as we can now. It's our job to run the budgets and things like that, it's your job to train the teachers. So how you're gonna do that is up to you, really, okay? But I simply cannot not be prepared. I just, it sounds
See, I
horrible.
guess-
Joel,
So
you
the
were right.
recommendation from the board is probably going to be to approve the total dollar amount, but the board is going to send, at least I, as a board member, am sending a message, I think you should buy the whole package now.
Yeah,
Right.
that's.
If anyone else wants to chime in
That's-
on that.
I'm
and send- and
100% on board.
We've spoken.
Yes.
I agree.
I do want to chime in on that. I mean, I feel like, I do not feel like we've heard from the representatives that we're going to shortchange anyone. I think what we've heard is that we feel like the materials we're going to review up front are comprehensive, and we will get what we need. If we need extra materials, we will purchase those or allocate or take those dollars when we need them. I guess I'm taking it from a different perspective of, if we're not sure we need the interventions, why are we spending $20,000 on them? If we think the core curriculum can meet the needs well of all of the students in our district, and we're not sure we need these extra $20,000 spent, why would we spend those dollars? And I guess that's the perspective I'm looking at it from, and I didn't hear that we were shortchanging any students in the district with the approach that's been proposed. But we're gonna approve the funding, so I think this is kind of a academic exercise.
Laura,
But no, it's not. I think it's important, because we're supposed to set the direction of the district. So I think we can't just be asked to spend money, because we need to know what we're approving. And so I don't think, I mean, you certainly can have the opinion you want, but it's not valid information, because if this company is so good and you like them so much, and they have some additional information that could be used, I don't see it as shortchanging our students. But
Otherwise,
why would we not have it?
Why not just
would
buy
we-
the 5th grade unit and just water it down for the 4th graders?
Yeah, well, yeah.
So,
So I think,
so I think the resolution is, I'd still like a better explanation of why we wouldn't do it. And so I don't want to jump to a conclusion. Gary or Joel respectfully kind of agree with Laura that we need to understand. It hasn't been presented. It's very unclear why we wouldn't do it. And when we met as a finance committee, Gary, we asked and we didn't have an answer.
Right.
What is this special ed allocation for money? I still don't understand it. We've talked about it twice now. Why we wouldn't, what is it doing for our students? And of course, we want to do the best thing for our students.
Which is why when we had the conversation after the finance committee meeting, I want to be clear that these materials are not special ed materials. They're not designed to be as such. They're not labeled as such. They're materials that further increase our capacity to differentiate. If the board recommends that we go ahead with the entire purchase, including the supplemental materials, I am positive that we'll put them to good use and that we'll do an excellent job supporting our teachers as they use all of it. If the sort of the impression that you got is that we want to wait, there It's a big purchase. There's some, you know, there might be some hesitancy in terms of how much can we take on at one time. However, if the board recommends, or if what the feeling I get from you is that we should just do the whole thing, I think that'd be a good decision as well.
So I guess my concern is, because I've seen this happen in industry, is you purchase something, you purchase the whole package, and part of it sits on a shelf and collects dust, and it's never, ever used. Do you have that concerns with the intervention materials? It doesn't sound from your last
I do
statement
not.
that you do.
I do
So that helps me a lot.
And
to
what
hear
I
you
said
say,
earlier, I guess I could reiterate, is that although we are in alignment, the principals have some degree of autonomy in terms of what they can, you know, how they approach these things. And so I know we will put this material to good use across the board. It may not be, we may not jump in day one with everything, but I know that we'll utilize it in the best interest of our students.
Well, let me ask this strategic question. Because this seems to be a huge topic, obviously, it's taken us a lot of time, it's taken money, and there's a lot here. We should not vote on it tonight, right?
Right.
I mean, we need to vote on it. So, in the future, what we need to do is divide this up.
Okay.
And we need to have a full discussion about this so that we're not at this point. And I know for myself, you know, I'm sitting here adding things up and it's not clear. And I read this thing like many times. So I guess we're at the point now where we do have to approve it, but.
Right, and you're correct, Maria, I'll jump in with, we are trying to do a lot in one board meeting, you know. Typically in over 2 board meetings, you know, have the discussion, you know, get feedback from the board, and then come back with a recommendation of the materials to purchase. Part of the timing Tim alluded to, the intent this year was to focus on reviewing a math series for adoption for next year. And during the course of the year, the teachers started talking about the ELA materials as well, and how important that was. And it was the teachers who, at the end of the year, said, you know, that they were voting on or giving input on which math series to go with. And they said, you know, it's kind of what Tim said. They said, you know, we know we're taking on the math series, but we're telling you right now, if there's any way to also bring on ELA materials as well, we're all for that. And so that's a little reason why the timing is such. You know, typically it would be math this year, ELA next year. You know, would be the normal sequence of what you would envision. But I agree with you that, you know, this should really be over the course of 2 meetings rather than trying to get it all done.
Because we have questions.
And we have the fiscal year that's drawing to a close. And part of the reason why it's framed this way is because some of the dollars are coming out of the current budget, and then some of it's coming out of the next year's budget.
Out of the current grant. And then,
Right,
Yeah,
and then
yes.
July 1 starts a new budget year, so that's part of the.
When you say grant, are you talking Title I? Okay, yeah, because so all this stuff, it just would have been, I mean, I guess in addition to having 2 separate, I mean, it would have been nice to have like, at the end, a whole summary of, because
Rather
I'm
than
still
breaking
trying to
into
figure out,
pieces.
like, when you look at this, here's additional purchases, but then there's the dual language, but that's not additional purchases, right?
The,
You know what I'm saying?
the materials that are being purchased in Spanish, as well as the English language development component, are being purchased from Title I and Title III. So the board we're asking the board to approve the entire purchase, although board funds are not being used for those 2 components, because we're able
And
to
that's
purchase.
not clear in any, I mean, it's really not clear in this, so it's, in a perfect world, or next time, we have to do this differently, so,
When we brought the math program to, I had a supplemental sort of introduction to ELA. Remember the discussion? It's like, what's a ELA?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was, that wasn't a thorough enough opportunity to have the discussion about the specific material because we were just starting to evaluate. So the introduction in that discussion opportunity a couple board meetings ago wasn't, I guess, a deep enough discussion because we didn't present to you how much it was going to cost, and so.
But in conjunction with that now, there's, some of us still have some questions here, and part of it is not just money. Part of it is, based on what is right here in front of us, it sounds like there's stuff that we're not gonna get, that some of us are struggling with. Like, if it, and let's just take the special ed piece out of it. Let's say it's not just for special ed kids, but kids learn differently. And if we teach that way, again, I will keep saying I don't have a teaching license. I guess my question is, why would we not have it? Because what if 10 kids in the class get it, but 3 don't? Now, the teacher has figured all this out, and they've done all this, and they've used all that. Why wouldn't we have an additional resource for them? And that, I hope you really understand what I'm saying. I'm not criticizing teaching staff, I'm not at all. I'm just saying, we've been asked this question, and from what I see, it seems like there's an additional resource that could be there if those, in my analogy, if those 3 kids still need something. And so, and according to this, it's like, we'll reevaluate if there's any gaps. And it's kind of sounding like we're gonna give you the money. So why wouldn't we have it rather than backing up?
So,
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
I believe, Ms. Charleston, what you're saying is the message that I'm getting from many of the board members is that you would advocate for us to purchase all of the components to be reassured that we'd have everything we need for all of our students, whether it be those who are special needs, English language learners, kids who learn differently, who need their text broken down a little bit differently, who need a little bit more support with vocabulary. You would advocate to purchase the entire package at one time. And it would be up to us to make sure that we not just have it on the shelf, but to make sure it was implemented with fidelity and to make sure that we do what's best for our students. I can tell you personally, I appreciate that viewpoint, and I assure you that I'll do my very best to make sure that happens.
I mean, that's
exactly.
That's where I'm coming from.
Mm-hmm. Let's vote. Okay, so the vote is going to be, or the motion is going to be basically what is on the top, the recommendation. So, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the purchase of benchmark advanced core instructional materials in the amount of $155,373 for kindergarten through grade 5, and allocate $58,005 of additional funding to the 2018-2019 budget for the purchase of these materials. Don't say anything yet.
That is correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Strohmeyer,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong,
Yes.
Mrs. Coyle,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes.
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, bye.
Okay. The next item for discussion, or no, well, approval. Approval, and I guess we're going to have the same thing. Approval of computer refresh for junior high and high school teachers.
Welcome back.
The computers that the teachers are using at the junior high and the high school are aging to a greater degree at the high school. So what we, as the board's memo indicates, is we need to get a set of new computers for student use and for teacher use. So what we would like the board to approve this purchase. And what we'll do is we'll give the newest hardware to the teachers, and we will repurpose what's in the classrooms to update the high school lab slightly and update the junior high lab significantly. Even though we're one-to-one, there are some specific applications that our students still use the lab for, and obviously we want our teachers to be able to be equipped with computers that handle the vast amount of multimedia and multidimensional learning materials that they provide for our students.
So I guess the question is, okay, so I see this, but is it in the budget already?
It's in the budget.
Okay.
I'm not asking for any additional
Okay,
funds.
so that would be helpful in the memo to say that, because sounds great then, right?
I just have one quick question.
Yes,
So
go
we've
ahead.
got all these smart boards in the high school and in the junior high and everything. I mean, aren't those also capable of handling all the media and so forth that you're trying to?
The smart board is simply the board in which it's projected to.
Okay,
The source of the media is the computer.
okay.
Okay, so this is easier then, right, since it's in the budget. Okay, any questions? The chair will entertain a motion to approve the computer refresh for junior high and high school teachers as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong,
Yes?
Mrs. Coyle,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Mr. Sturmeyer,
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carried. Okay, Kim, do you want to just say what this is, just so we can?
So I'm just asking the board to allow us to pay the bills that we receive in June for the remainder of the month, especially that pertain to this fiscal year, so that we have, pay them in before the end of the fiscal year, so that we have everything that relates to this fiscal year paid in this fiscal year. And so this is what we do each time we have only one meeting in the month, because we haven't received all of our bills yet for this month.
Okay, everyone, we're good on that. The chair will entertain a motion to authorize and direct the treasurer to pay any additional bills received before June 30, 2018 that have been budgeted for the current fiscal year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
And roll call, please.
Mr. Armstrong,
Yes?
Mrs. Coyle,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Mr. Sturmeyer,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton.
Yes.
Thank you.
Before we move on to the next topic, would you like these back? Wow, that's really heavy. Thank you, thank you. Okay, the next item for, well, approval is approval of tentative 2018-2019 budget.
Okay, and we'll have him put the presentation up on the screen so everyone can see it. Tonight, we have the 2018-19 tentative budget for your review. And first, we're going to start out and we're going to look at our revenues by source. So for all funds, we have a total of $27.8 million. And then on the operating funds, a total of $26.5 million. And just for a refresher for everybody, the operating funds include the education, the operations and maintenance fund, transportation fund, the IMRF and Social Security fund, and the tort fund. And as you can see, property taxes are the largest source of our revenue. And then we also receive funding at other sources like our fees, corporate personal property replacement taxes. Our state sources include our evidence-based funding, so what used to be the general state aid, and then state grants, and then our federal sources are comprised of our federal grants like Title I, Title II, the IDEA grant. Revenue assumptions, the tax levy is based on a CPI of 2.1% for the 2017 and the 2018 levies. And again, property taxes are our largest source of revenue. Our interest rates have increased over this year, and I did include additional interest income in the budget projections. And right now, grant funding is at our fiscal year 18 levels. We're just in the process of starting to receive some of our grant allocations. So at the time this information was presented, we hadn't really received those, so we kept everything flat. And the governor has signed the state budget. When we look at our expenditures by object, again, for all funds, $30.6 million, and in the operating funds, $28.7 million overall. Again, salaries and benefits comprise the majority of our expenses. So in the operating funds, that is 74, almost 75% of our expenditures. And then we have things like purchase services, and those include like transportation. Some of our utilities are considered purchase services, and supplies, obviously supplies for our classrooms, and a couple of the utilities also fall in that category. Then any of our capital outlay expenditures, and then tuition for our outplaced students, and then non-capitalized equipment. Our expenditure assumptions, our expenditures are based on the salaries per contract for the WTA, WESPA, and the WCMA. We've budgeted our medical insurance at half the year at our current rate, and then a 6% increase for the remainder of the year. Our O&M fund includes our funding for capital expenditures and identified in the 5-year capital plan, and some of those include playground repairs, boiler pipe patching, and minor HVAC repairs at Manning, vinyl stair tread replacement, and ignition controls for the boiler at Miller, new boiler controls at South School, masonry repairs, and floor tile abatement and replacement at the junior high, minor roof repairs, student desk replacement, and gym floor restriping at the high school, and then minor parking lot repairs district-wide. And our capital projects fund also includes any remaining costs for the 2016 safety and security renovations at the high school, junior high, Manning, and Miller, and then anticipated costs for the other summer projects. And when we look at the surplus and deficit overall, in our operating funds, we're looking at a $2.2 million deficit overall. And this is better than what was projected in the 5-year plan. And you can see, again, the majority of this is in the ed fund, and we are doing planned deficit spending in the O&M fund. When we look at our fund balance summary, again, we have beginning fund balance, ending fund balance, and then the net change by fund. And again, so $2.2 million fund balance change in the operating funds. And then our key considerations. Our revenue projections are conservative. We've always done a very conservative budget. Our expenditures are based on anticipated needs. We typically spend less than we actually budget. The 18-19 budget is aligned with board and district goals to provide educational services to the students and families we serve, planned deficit spending in the O&M fund, and then adjustments will be made to the final budget as updated information is received. So it's important to know that we've got some staff movements, we've got still some anticipated resignations and potential rehires going on. We're finalizing some salaries hopefully tonight. So as we fine-tune those things, also we're getting more information in on our grants, things like that. So as we can continue to get updated information, I continue to update that budget so that and so you will see some different numbers for the final budget, because we'll give you as up-to-date information as we have at that time in September. And then also important to know this does not include any property tax freeze that hasn't been voted on yet, but it's just important to keep that in mind. And then pension reform legislation is still pending. They haven't made any decisions about whether they're going to pass additional pension costs down to the district level. So obviously, if those things happen, then we will be realigning our budget, and I'll be coming back and we'll be having further discussions. We have to put the budget on display, so it will go on display tomorrow. It'll be available at the district office at 133 South Grand Street. And then we publish a legal notice in the newspaper at least 30 days prior to the public hearing. We're planning on publishing it on August 1st. And then the public hearing and final budget adoption has to occur by September 30th. And we will have our public budget hearing on September 25th at 7 p.m. at the Village Hall. Anybody have questions?
So earlier tonight, we heard that we may have to be adding sections into the kindergarten, so that's not in the budget.
That's not in here.
I didn't think so, I just wanted to say it out
No,
loud.
it's not, so. And I do, there might be some adjustments as we look at our transports right now, like transportation revenue is estimated. But we don't do that claim until August, so then I get a preliminary figure from there, so that might change some things. Again, we finalize salaries, we look at some things. We did just get another installment of the tax levy, so we actually got some additional funding for this year, so that's going, we received probably about 52% of our levy. Typically, we receive 50% by this time, so that's going to change our fund balance going forward, but ultimately won't impact the bottom line at the end of next year. But there's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts still happening right now. Other questions?
And so what you're looking for tonight is approval of a tentative budget.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the tentative 2018-2019 budget as presented, and that said budget be available for public inspection in the district's business office from June 20th, 2018 until board adoption on Tuesday, September 25th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mr. Stromeyer?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes,
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Superintendent's report.
A couple items in my report. First of all, summer school is off to a great start. We actually only have about a week and a half left of summer school. And our enrollment figures are on par for what we've had the last couple of years. In grades K through 1, we have about 32 students enrolled. Grades 2 through 3, 34. Grades 4 through 5, 27. Our junior high reading and math is approximately 20 students. High school reading and math, 29. Then credit recovery, 35. And AP human geography, 48. So those are on par for prior years. If you remember, we tweaked our K-5 program this year. And kind of informal feedback from students and staff is that they really like the changes. The students are very excited. We had, for the second 2 weeks, we had very few open seats remaining because of the parent response, so it's been going very well. And we'll do a more formal assessment after we conclude summer school. And then it's hard to believe, even though we're ending one school year, but it's already time to start talking about the 2008 joint conference coming up this fall. And the joint conference is a collaborative effort between the Illinois Association of School Business Officials, Illinois Association of School Administrators, and Illinois School Board Association. This year it's over the weekend of November 16th through 18th. On Friday the 16th, earlier in the day, are pre-conference opportunities. Those two fill up very quickly. And then the official conference starts about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the 16th. Then there are breakout sessions on Saturday the 17th and the morning of Sunday the 18th. But if you are planning on attending the conference, if you could let Rima know. We do have to book hotel reservations early, because those also fill very quickly. And then also, I attached in the board update, and it's also attached to the board book, the pre-conference opportunities. If there's something that appeals to you, if you could let Rima know that as soon as possible as well, so we can get those registered for you. Rima will take care of the registration for the board. And then also, just a reminder, Thursday nights on Cass Avenue are cruise nights from 5 o'clock until 9 o'clock. And once again, the school district is being represented out there every Thursday night. And we rotate different administrators who are out there. Nadine Norris was able to find funds to purchase books. She looked for every scholastic deal and bargain. And so any students that approach our table, they're welcome to select a book, with the only caveat, they must read that book this summer. So that's the only thing we have them pledged to. And of course, as board members, if there's an evening you would like to be out there at the table, or if you just want to come by for a few minutes, and it's a great opportunity to meet members of our community and reconnect with some of our school families. So we really enjoy doing that. And that's my report.
That's great.
Kevin, I do have something to bring up about summer school. So I signed my student up for high school, she's going to be a sophomore, for summer school. And as I read the description, you know, I didn't, I guess, really focus in and read it specifically, but basically the high school summer school offering is the team program or credit recovery. So there wasn't really, we really didn't find out until we got into it that basically she was repeating the summer school with the incoming 8th graders. Now, we worked things out and talked and did some additional structure to the programming and to meet some specific goals we had. But I was like, I didn't really realize we didn't have an offering for students who might need a little extra help over the summer. And had I known that, I would have brought it up a lot earlier, because I've advocated about summer school for a long time. But I think that's a piece that's going to have to be looked at a little more closely. I'd hate to think that we're missing students who may want to participate, or parents who may want their students as well to participate, because we didn't have anything that was really called summer school for junior, sophomores, juniors, etc.
Sure.
So it's a piece that I think should be looked at. And I don't know, you know, the interest level, because I know older students, it's much, as I know, it's much more difficult, you know, and they have other competing things going on. But I think, you know, that I'd hate to think that we're missing opportunities.
And that's something Megan Burvink, the teaching learning coordinator at the high school, mentioned to me as well. And I touched base with Linda Cloudwater, our director of student services. But at the end of each summer school session, we do reflect on it, get feedback, and that becomes part of our plan going forward. So that's definitely an area we can look at, and as you're suggesting, see where the need is at, and then see if there's something that we can develop for different grade levels at the high school as well.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't know about how the interest goes, but you know, there could be individual students that still would benefit.
That's something we'll definitely consider as we develop our program going forward.
Kevin, I'll just add that, you know, back in the Stone Age when I went to high school, we had, in summer school, you could take a regular class. You could take the next year English class. You could take the next year history class, and then that would open up your schedule to potentially something else during the school year. I don't know if anything like that would potentially be available, or if the students would even use it in today's day and age. But I think with all the AP that we have, if a student could not take, you know, English during the regular school year and take it during the summer school, it would just give them more time to study for AP. and just throwing it out there.
That's something that, again, we can take a look at and consider.
Right.
Really? Stone Age?
Yeah.
They were using the cave walls.
We certainly didn't have computers.
Okay, anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, board reports?
I do have two. First, I just want to remind everybody that this Sunday, the athletic boosters are having their fundraiser at Twin Lakes Golf Course. You don't have to golf. You can come, pay a small fee, have dinner, talk with friends. There's going to be a silent auction. I know some of the board members and I were playing in the actual event. It's always a lot of fun. They put a lot of effort into it, so come out and have a good time. And that's this Sunday again at Twin Lakes. Registration starts, I think it's 1 o'clock. Okay, there's also holding a family event at noon. So if you wanted to golf with maybe younger kids or something, they're having, I think that starts at 12 o'clock. But you can go to the website and find that out. Additionally, I'd like to thank all the parents who took in the German students while they were here. I'd like to thank Mr. Vaughn. He did a great job organizing it, along with Eva Rosel and Barbara Matt. A lot of parents took in students. They had a wonderful week here of experiences. They played at a couple different venues with the other students, and they did their trips into Chicago and everything. There was a lot of volunteers that made all that happen. I just want to thank everybody who did a great trip. They had a great time.
Anybody else? I have one thing. We sit here and we talk about our school and what we can do and what we have the funds for and all that. But in the last 10 days before this, we went on college visits and visited 5 schools on the West Coast. And it was amazing, and it was really wonderful to see when you look at like the offerings that our school has, and on a nationwide level. And it was pretty impressive when you kind of look at things like that. So here we were, 2,000 miles away from home, and looking at very good schools, and knowing full well that I know from what we offer here in our schools, we are getting our kids ready for the next level. So it was a great experience, just seeing what we're doing here. So kudos to everyone involved in all that. So, all right, are there any other public comments? Then the upcoming events are just the next school board meeting, which is July 17th at 7 o'clock. That will be held at South School, though, because of conflicting events here. Then, after closed session, we do have a number of motions. So first we will go into closed, and then we will come back out, and there will be some items. So the chair will entertain a motion to enter closed session for the purpose of discussing personnel issues.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Go. Okay, roll call. We gotta add that to this. Roll call, please.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mr. Strohmeyer?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
Mrs. Coyle?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, would you add? Okay, we are back from closed session. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the salaries of non-exempt, non-certified employees as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mr. Stromeyer?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
Mrs. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes. Okay, motion carried. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the addendum to the business manager / CSBO's 2017 through 2018 employment contract as presented.
So moved?
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Stromeyer?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
Mrs. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the administrative salaries for the 2018 through 2019 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
Mrs. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mr. Stromeyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.